They weren't fancy, they weren't fashionable, but they carried a nation through its hardest years. In post-war Britain, food wasn't about taste. It was about surviving another day. Families stretched scraps into meals, and children grew up on whatever filled their bellies fastest. And the truth is, many of those so-called classics were hiding things no one ever talked about. This is the forgotten story behind the 25 foods that shaped a generation, and the shadows they left behind. Bread and dripping. Sunday's roast left more than meat. By Monday, a white block of congealed fat floated on a thin layer of jelly at the bottom of a jar. Every house had one. Mothers scraped it across thick bread, sprinkled a whisper of salt if they had any, and handed it to children like it was a gift. It smelled of cold gravy and coal smoke. No one thought about bacteria. They thought about not going hungry, bubble and squeak. This was Sunday's cabbage and potatoes reborn, chopped up, pressed into a pan, fried until the edges crisped and the kitchen hissed. The sound gave it its name, bubble and squeak. Kids wrinkled their noses. Fathers said it was better the second time. It clung to curtains, to jumpers, to childhood itself. Jam sandwiches, 2 slices of soft white bread, a thin smear of jam, sometimes without even butter, cheap, sweet, sticky, the kind of thing that glued your fingers together and bought mothers an hour of quiet. Children didn't care it was almost pure sugar. To them, it was a treat. To dentists, it was disaster. Liver and onions. Fried until the smell filled the house and lingered long after the plates were washed. Mothers promised it was good for you. Children stared at the dark slabs, hoping the sweet onions might drown the taste of metal. It divided families as sharply as politics. Some loved it, some still gag at the memory. Sweat dumplings. Little balls of flour and fat dropped into thin stews, swelling into soft white sponges that soaked up every drop of gravy. They were heavy, filling, and felt like proof you wouldn't go to bed hungry. Nobody called them unhealthy. They called them home. If these forgotten memories are starting to stir, tap like and subscribe. It helps keep these stories alive for the next generation. Spam fritters. A strange pink block from a tin, sliced, battered, and fried until golden. The crack of the crust gave way to salty mystery inside. For families without fridges, it was a miracle that sat in the pantry for months. Kids lined up for them at chip shops on Fridays, clutching warm paper packets on the walk home. Few knew what was really in it. Nobody cared. Fish fingers. Bird's eye promised fish without the fuss. No bones, no smell, no mess. Mothers saw magic. Children saw treasure. Golden sticks from the freezer to the pan in minutes. They were mostly mashed scraps of fish offcuts, but to a child with peas on the side, they felt like the future. Corned beef hash. Thick and salty, fried with potatoes and onions until the pan hissed. 1 tin could stretch to supper for 6. It was a miracle until 1964, when a typhoid outbreak in Aberdeen traced back to infected Argentine corned beef. It fed the nation, and quietly poisoned it. Tinned salmon sandwiches. Pale pink fish mashed with vinegar and spread thin across white bread. Served on doilies at Sunday teas, pretending to be posh. Kids remember the sharp, briny smell as the tin lid curled back. It was respectable, even when packed with pollutants no one tested for back then. Kippers. They stained curtains with their smoke and your clothes with their smell. Cheap, oily, and powerful. Fathers swore by them. Children pinched their noses. The same heavy, tar-filled smoke that cured them would later be linked to cancer. But back then, they just filled you up. They promised protein, but often brought more than families bargained for. Pickled onions. sharp little bombs floating in cloudy vinegar, lurking at the back of the cupboard. They made eyes water and cheeks pucker. Some families pickled their own, lining jars on the counter like trophies. They lasted forever because nothing, absolutely nothing, could live in them. Beef stew with pearl barley. Coal ranges simmered it all afternoon, cheap cuts, carrots, onions, and barley that swelled 3 times its size. It fogged up the windows and filled the house with rich steam. It looked hearty, but the barley filled stomachs more than it fed bodies. Baked beans on toast, sweet, soft, and sliding off the edges of enamel plates. Heinz tins stacked high in every shop, 1 million sold each day. Children loved the hiss as they bubbled on the stove. They had more sugar than some desserts, but nobody counted sugar back then. Shepherd's pie, leftover lamb minced with onions and carrots, hidden under clouds of mashed potato. Mothers scraped the pan clean so nothing went to waste. It came out golden, steaming and comforting, disguising how little meat was really there. Fried bread, a slice of bread sizzling in leftover fat until it turned golden and crackled under your knife. It soaked up beans like a sponge, greasy, crunchy, unforgettable. Comfort food, yes, but comfort can come at a cost. Steak and kidney pudding, hours of slow steaming, suet pastry sealing in dark gravy that spilled when the crust cracked. It felt like a feast, even though kidneys are the body's filters, full of everything they filtered. It was Sunday tradition, heavy and proud. Angel delight, powder that turned into pastel mousse with just milk and a whisk. Strawberry, chocolate, butterscotch, flavors that tasted like nothing in nature, and that was the point. Children licked the whisk clean. The packets hid a storm of additives. Treacle sponge, golden syrup dripping down soft sponge, swimming in custard. It filled kitchens with sugar-sweet steam. 1 square held a day's worth of sugar, and children would still beg for seconds. Arctic roll, vanilla ice cream wrapped in sponge and jam, sliced into perfect spirals. Mothers brought it out at birthdays like it was treasure. It was cheap, frozen, and pure sugar, and Britain ate 25 million a year. Black pudding, dark rounds of blood and fat fried crisp on the edges. In the north, it was breakfast royalty. Kids dared each other to eat it, not knowing how often poor hygiene left it crawling with bacteria. They filled bellies, while quietly reshaping tastes forever. Boiled to death cabbage. Pale green leaves collapsed into grey ribbons after hours of boiling. The smell clung to curtains for days. Vitamins vanished into the cloudy water poured down the sink. Children held their noses and chewed fast to get it over with. Jellied eels, slippery, cold, quivering in their own jelly, sold in East End markets, eaten with splashes of vinegar while the smell made children gag. River pollution was high, but nobody cared. They were cheap, and they filled you up. Kia ora squash. Neon orange syrup splashed into water, turning it sweet enough to make your teeth ache. It wasn't fruit, just sugar and coloring. But to a child in the 60s, it tasted like sunshine. Dandelion and burdock pop, herbal, fizzy, and oddly addictive. Delivered door to door by the pop man, bottles clinking on the step. Kids would race to trade empties for full ones. It felt like magic. It was mostly sugar, bread and butter pudding, stale bread layered with butter and sultanas, soaked in custard, baked until golden. It smelled of cinnamon and warmth. It was proof that even scraps could become comfort, loved, hated, and almost erased. These 25 meals built post-war Britain from scraps, sugar, smoke, and sheer determination. They weren't glamorous, but they carried families through cold winters and thin pay packets. They filled homes with smells you can still remember if you close your eyes, and left behind health costs nobody saw coming. Were they comfort or quiet catastrophe? Which of these do you secretly miss, even knowing the truth now? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. There are plenty more forgotten stories waiting to be told.